Have you ever caught yourself saying something completely absurd by accident? Like you're in the kitchen and you tell someone to put the oven on a low speed instead of a low temperature. We usually just laugh off these everyday slips of the tongue, right? But for cognitive scientists, these relatable little mistakes are absolute gold. They're actually the best clues we have to reverse engineer the brain's hidden linguistic factory.
Welcome to today's Explainer, fellow focused learners. Today, we're exploring the incredible split-second journey of transforming a totally abstract thought into physical sound waves. It's a process that happens so flawlessly and so rapidly that we completely take it for granted. But beneath the surface, your mind is running an unbelievably complex operation.
So here is our agenda for this explainer. We're going to look at 1. The speech assembly line. 2. Searching the mental dictionary. 3. Building the sentence. 4. Planning the sounds. And finally, 5. The physical output. Let's get right into it. Section 1. The speech assembly line. Okay, let's dive into this overall blueprint of how the brain moves from a mere spark of inspiration to actual articulation. It all starts with a concept, a nonverbal idea. From there, your brain moves through lexical selection to pick the right words, then syntactic representation to build the grammar, and phonological representation to plan the actual sounds. Only after all of that internal planning is totally complete does the brain finally send a signal to the articulatory system to produce physical sound waves. It's a highly structured, linear journey from encoding to speech. Section 2. Searching the mental dictionary. Moving down that assembly line, our first major stop is lexical selection. Your brain has this massive internal dictionary, a lexicon, that organizes thousands of words simultaneously. But how exactly are they organized? Well, what's really interesting here is how speech errors give away the filing system. Take a semantic error. Say someone intends to say strawberries, but accidentally blurts out whipped cream and mushrooms. This meaning-based mistake proves that words with similar meanings, like food items, are stored physically close together in the brain. But then, look at a phonological error. Someone says gargle instead of garlic. They mean completely different things, but they sound really similar. This tells us our mental lexicon actually has two entirely distinct retrieval methods. It organizes words by their meaning and separately by their physical sound. Section 3. Building the sentence. Once we've grabbed our words from that dictionary, we have to put them in order. This is where the brain actively builds the grammatical structure. But it's not always smooth sailing. Look at these agreement errors studied by Bach and Miller in 1991. When participants were given sentence starters like the bridge to the islands, they frequently made what's called a plural attraction error, saying things like the bridge to the islands close at 7. So why does that happen? It's because of a process called number morphing. The plural noun islands is sitting dangerously close to the verb on the mental assembly line. The brain accidentally gets attracted to that plural and assigns it to the verb, completely forgetting that the actual subject, the bridge, is singular. Plus, this syntax department has a strict capacity limit. Research by Ferreira illustrates that sentence complexity acts as heavy cargo on this assembly line. A simple subject like the large and raging river is super fast to initiate. But a complex subject using relative clause, like the river that stopped flooding, requires significantly more cognitive resources. It literally takes the brain longer to plan before the speaker can even begin to vocalize the first word. Because building these complex sentences is so mentally taxing, our brains take ingenious shortcuts. This is known as syntactic priming. Basically, if you've recently heard a specific grammatical structure, your brain is highly likely to just recycle it. If someone asks you, "At what time do you close?" you'll probably answer, "At 7, mirroring their exact structure, rather than just saying 7. Your brain adopts to the structure used by the person you're talking to, because reusing their syntax is just incredibly efficient and drastically reduces your own planning time. Section 4. Planning the sounds. So we've got our words and we've got our grammatical structure. Next, we shift gears to the final internal planning phase, where the brain selects and orders the exact phonetic sounds required. And just like with syntax, the phonological department has its own unique assembly line errors. One of the most fascinating is the anticipation error. This is a phonological speech error where a sound from a later word appears earlier than intended in the sentence. A classic example is someone accidentally saying tattle tennis instead of paddle tennis. The T sound from tennis literally jumped the Q on the factory floor and replaced the P in paddle. We might just chuckle at this, but think about what this actually proves. It proves that our brain is pre-planning entire sequences of sounds down the line before firing off a single motor command to our mouth. The tea was already loaded in the chamber while the brain was just trying to say paddle.
Section 5. The physical output. Finally, after milliseconds of furious, invisible computation, our abstract thought has left the mental realm and is ready to become physical, biological movement. Now, the very first step of physical speak is actually respiratory. Speech fundamentally overrides our normal biological breathing rhythm. When you're just sitting there, your inhale and exhale take about the same amount of time. But to speak, you have to take a very short, rapid inhale followed by a long, highly controlled exhale. You're essentially turning your lungs into a pressurized air tank, carefully letting out air to regulate vocal fold vibration, pitch, and loudness. And this brilliantly illustrates how we ground all that abstract mental planning into hard anatomy. It's called the source filter model of vowel production. The vocal folds down at the bottom act as the source of the sound, producing a fundamental frequency. But the sound doesn't just stay that way. The pharyngeal cavity in your throat, the oral cavity in your mouth, and the nasal cavity all act as biological filters. By moving your tongue, lips, and jaw, you change the shape of these cavities, filtering the raw sound into the precise vowels and consonants you mapped out in your phonological plan. To put that all into perspective, look at the final product. The final output of this entire cognitive miracle is incredibly rich. Just compare these two spectrograms. On the left, you've got a pure computer-generated tone, a simple uniform wave. But on the right, that is a human singing. Look at all those distinct, dark, horizontal bands. Those are formants, the complex resonant frequencies created by the human biological filter. It's a stunning visual representation of just how textured, complex, and deeply biological our physical speech truly is compared to a machine. We go through our entire day talking, chatting, and debating without ever giving a second thought to the massive linguistic factory working tirelessly in our heads. So I'll leave you with this. If all of that encoding, lexical retrieval, syntactic building, and anatomical filtering is required just for one single sentence, what other hidden miraculous systems in your mind are flawlessly executing millions of calculations right now just so you can simply say hello? Keep that in mind the next time you accidentally tell someone to put the oven on a low speed. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.